set that up here or no?
I'm tall. I'll stand there. I get it. Really, was everyone able to go except for Kobe?
Yes. Yes, everybody. I mean, Yuki was a little bit limited, just waiting to get back some results on just his physical. He did non-contact today.
Okay. You guys did do some contact today?
Oh, yeah.
Lots of it?
Lots of it, yes.
How do they look?
It was good. I think the things that we talked about, yesterday at Media Day, I think those are areas there as you break down the season. I mentioned some of it yesterday, in terms of like deflections, loose balls, on the offensive side, trying to get to the offensive glass. I think the turnover ratio or differential, our biggest issue was, like I said, I think teams took 4 more shots a game than we did. That was like 28th in the league. So there's just areas I think we've got to really focus on that we can control. Charges, the deflections. I think the deflection hopefully will generate maybe some more turnovers for us getting to the glass a lot more. Like, the possession game, to me, those things generally come down to physicality and how we can find a way to be better in those areas.
Just one more for me. So, last year it was easy for you to talk about the offensive change because it's like play faster, get up more threes, earlier shot clock.
Right.
When you talk about a defensive transformation, is that what you're talking about? More charges, more active hands, more deflections, more physicality. Is that the easy summary of it?
Yeah, yes. But like there's also things too where I felt as much as, like, for example, I think the year before last year, I think we were either 29th or 30th in transition points, right? And they flipped it, and we went to number 1. And I'm not sitting there saying that in every category we're going to go from 28th to 29th to 1, but like we can be better taking charges. We shouldn't be 28th. Like loose balls, we can be better there. 27th, 28th in offensive rebound, we can be better there. We've got to do a better job, honestly, coaching and putting more of an emphasis on those things. But there are some of those things are offensively too. The offensive rebounding is taking care of the basketball is another one of those areas. But there are certain things that I think that we can be better at, the controllables. Whereas I think sometimes you say physically, hey, line up and guard this guy one-on-one. You can break down every one of our players individually defensively and say, hey, what kind of defender is he? Like Isaac Okoro's got the reputation of being an elite defender. Some other guys have got to, may need more help, right? But there's still things I think we can do because the shooting and the shot profile I thought was really good, and the guys transformed that last year, which was great. But now the next iteration of that is that's not good enough. It probably maybe took some teams by surprise how fast we play, but now the development and the growth has got to be in some other areas.
Hey, Billy, can the addition of a guy like Isaac change the whole look of the defense, or is that putting too much on one guy that his presence motivates guys and also what he does himself individually?
Yeah, I don't know. To me, I think he can, because there's things that he's really good at that we need to get better at, and I think there's an example of those guys can look at. So I think he's able to help that standpoint. But to put all the physicality just on him, I think there's no way he could do that. But I do think him knowing the league, him guarding some of the best players in the league, the other part of it too is I think the way he plays off ball screens, in pick and roll, him going to the offensive glass, those are things we need to get better at. He's good at those things. That can be, I think, a great tool. And, he should be a great example for a lot of our younger guys.
You sort of hinted at the fact that, quite a few, while you're trying to put together buy-in for the defensive chance, quite a few of these guys don't have a one-on-one that
right.
I get my ass.
Right.
I guess, in what ways are you trying to take all those things you want to do in defense and turn it into sort of a digestible lesson for those guys?
Yeah, I mean, for every player, they're not maybe Isaac Okoro one-on-one or defensively what he's done. That's kind of been his niche as an NBA player, right? And you could go through, for example, I think one guy that has the potential and the ability to be an elite defender but hasn't gotten there yet is Io. Like, if you look at his defensive metrics, they certainly don't add up to, what he's capable of, in my opinion. I think if you go back to Josh Giddey early in the year, a lot of people were talking about his defense. I think he got better. We still got to play collectively as a group. We got to play team defense. But I do think that every player on our team is capable of putting their body into play and taking a charge. Like, I don't think there's any reason we can't be better in that area. I think every player is capable of putting their body in a play. I think when it comes to deflections, we're all capable of putting our hands up and trying to be disruptive in passing lanes. I don't mean gambling and trying to go for steals and take ourselves out of position, but I'm not asking Josh or Kevin Herter or anybody to be Isaac Okoro. They've got to be really sound in what they do, but we can't be a team that just has 5 defenders out there and everybody can just take care of their man one-on-one. There's still going to be team defenses involved. And in that team defense, I think there's things we got to focus on that we've got to improve upon. Besides, because here's the thing, our shot defense was 11th best in the league. The difference was what I said earlier was our effective field goal percentage defensively was 11th. With that being 11th, we were playing team and won 39 games. Okay, well, why is that? Well, there's a whole other bunch of stuff as it relates to possessions that we've got to find a way. So some of the stuff is defensively, some of it is offensively, but I think that's the next step because when we played the way we did last year, yeah, it was good in a lot of ways, but there's another iteration to that. There's another level to that we need to go to continue to grow and develop.
So you mentioned Josh's defense. What is the key area that you want to see him improve in that this year? Is it disruptiveness? Is it screen navigation? Just what would you like to see?
I think the biggest issue with any player and all players, and this would go for Isaac, who's great defensively, or Alex Cruz, or any of those kind of guys. The point of the screen or the point of guarding the ball one-on-one. If you're giving up blow-bys, it becomes very, very difficult to play defense. I think Josh has always been a pretty physical guy. He's always been comfortable down the post defensively. But at the point of screens and in open space, he's got to be better guarding the basketball. Now, that being said, I thought last year that was really something that we really spent a lot of time with him on, talking to him, showing him film. And to his credit, I thought as the year went on, he got better and better at those things. And I think maybe Joe had asked me last year, can this guy be better defensively? Right. I don't know if he's going to be, quote unquote, a defensive stopper, but I think he is capable. Everybody's capable athletically to understanding what their limitations are and being able to guard the ball better. But listen, whether it's Doncic or Kyrie Irving or Steph Curry, you put any of those guys out on an island one-on-one against anybody, they're going to be a problem, right? So we still need team defense. But the biggest thing would be how well can they contain the ball? That would be the number one thing I would say would be ball containment. And ball containment in pick and roll, ball containment in space.
And do you feel like that's something that players are able to work on when they're doing their off-season work? Or is that something that you feel like Josh came in looking tangibly better at? Or is it something that has to be done kind of in the season?
Yeah, it's interesting. When those guys go into the summer, I'd say they probably all do the same thing. They work on their offensive game. They work on their bodies. They work on, areas of speed, quickness, athleticism, those kind of things. I don't know a lot of guys doing defensive slides in the summer. And maybe some guys work on some things defensively, but that's, ultimately, if you look at it, our effective field goal percentage last year was 13th best. So, maybe it was slightly better than middle of the road, and our effective field goal percentage defensively was 11th. It's not always about missing and making shots. Certainly that helps, but that's not the end-all, be-all, Even if you have good, an effective field goal percentage, but you're turning the ball over, you're giving up offensive rebounds, you're not offensive rebounding, you're not generating, free throw line opportunities, you're not getting to the rim. Just over a period of time, the numbers will tell you you can't make up those lost possessions. The other part, with that being said, it was like the same thing I know we talked about the year before. Were we analytically losing the battle where teams were taking 40, 45 three-point shots and we're getting up 28, and there's just this huge discrepancy. There was a lot of truth to that, right? But that's kind of the way our team was. Well, the same thing here. If you give a team, I think for the year we got 92 shots a game and our opponent got 96. Well, if you're going to start every game and say, okay, here's 5 more shots, here's 4 more shots, our, I think, net rating last year was minus 1.6. With this group, if you just go on the effective field goal percentage, you sit there and say, oh, I only got 4 more shots. Maybe things would be a little bit different, but what are the areas that create 4 more shots for you? And that's what we've tried to focus on. And a lot of that stuff, quite honestly, Julie, is the physical stuff. That's where we've got to, put your body in a play, take a charge. That's a possession we get back. A shot goes up, we offensive rebound, right? It's a possession. Being responsible. I know we talked early in the year, and some of it wasn't the guy's fault. It was just early in the year, new style of play. We turn it over 22, 24, 25 times. And it was like every other – it's hard to win like that when your team's getting so much more opportunities than you are.
Say, Billy,
and then we're gonna bring Isaac over.
we've got several questions about
Perfect.
I've got several questions.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, with like the increased physicality and some of the stuff Arturis was talking about yesterday, picking up full court, do you feel like there's any trade-off there or any concern about like that impacting the type of effort or force that you play with on the offensive side?
Listen, I when I was in college, I always pressed, so I'm all for that, right? Press 48 minutes, right? But there are dead balls and free throws that we can do different things to try to be maybe a little bit more disruptive and have possessions during the course of the game. Like if you look at teams playing zone, right? Probably 90% of what they do for the year is going to be man to man. But they have these wrinkles that they throw in to maybe break momentum, break tempo. We'll have to do some of that. Like I think us picking up, trying to maybe, one of the things we didn't do, we don't force any turnovers, and you don't necessarily maybe get to the free throw line at a high rate. What ended up flipping after the All-Star break that we need to build upon was the rim. The rim was the biggest difference. We got to the rim a lot more after the All-Star game and after the trade deadline. And then on top of that, we did a better job defending the rim. So we've shown some signs of the physical things that we can do, but we've got to do them more and more consistently. And listen, for a young group, there's going to be growth. Like Modest and I were just talking about how he talked about, he said, wow, man, it's a lot of effort to go to the glass on every single possession, and it is. And, you sit there and start trying to conserve energy. And that's why I think I mentioned that I think you see in the playoffs now, it used to be rotations were cut. Teams play 7 or 8 guys. Now you're starting to see, playoffs now, teams are playing 9, 10, 11 guys, because of the pace and the physicality of the game. So, we need all of our guys, but it's also, I think you got to try to develop that kind of mindset.
So with that, would you consider playing a deeper rotation?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I think last year we went to 10. I think sometimes if you break not momentum, but if you break timing and rhythm for guys, if you play too many. But I do think during the course of the year, like I always respected Javon Carter for as limited as he was in terms of getting rotational minutes on a daily basis. That guy kept himself ready to play. And, one game stands out as he gets a chance against Atlanta and he makes, 9 3-point shots or 7 3-point shots in the first half, and he was awesome. But every time I feel like I called upon him, he was ready. And some of these young guys, not all of them are going to be in the rotation. Can they be professional and keep themselves ready that when their number is called, they can produce and be productive and effective?
Yeah, okay. So, first, this obviously, for obvious reasons, a sensitive issue with me. But yesterday, Vucevic was asked a lot of questions about being old and being able to produce at his age. What's your view of where he is? Do you think it's appropriate to cut him down to 24, 28 minutes, where he said he spoke to you this summer and it's, his feeling is he's going to play the way he's played before?
Yeah, well, I'd say a couple of things. One is he actually played for the national team, and I think that he was one of the leaders during the tournament in terms of minutes played. I know he led Montenegro in minutes played, right? So he showed, I think, the propensity and endurance to do that. I think the other thing, and credit to him, and I've always talked about this with him, is he keeps himself in great shape. He takes care of his body. He's one of the first players here. He's in that weight room. He gets treatment. He gets everything. My biggest concern going into the year, from my perspective, is I've just noticed in past players that have played national teams, I think you got to be smart in terms of training camp and some of those things. Now, I trust him in terms of, hey, I need a blow. I'll let him regulate himself because he knows his body really well. I think what's happened now is some of the age that you're talking about has gotten pushed further down the road, because I think the way these guys are in tune with their bodies, the way they take care of their bodies, the eating, the hydration, the information, the education these guys get. So I still think Bruce is a very productive player and can continue to be a productive player for us. He's always been a team guy. I don't know what game it was last year. I can't remember. But, Zach Collins was playing really, really, really well. And, Bruce didn't really close the game. There's going to be some times where maybe his minutes aren't that. But I'm not going into the season saying, hey, we got to immediately drop Vooch down to here. I think what we've got to be able to do is give every player the opportunity. I think Vooch has proven over the course of his career, as professional as he's been, as he's come ready. And he's also, I think, very much team-orientated, that if there was times where his minutes were up and he felt like in some way it was a detriment to the team, he would definitely come and talk to me and say something. But I think for as hard as he works, it was interesting coaching Chris Paul when I had Chris Paul. He was coming off the Houston situation. He had those hamstrings, and he spent an enormous amount of time in the off season taking care of his body. And I know it was a big thing for him. He did not want to be labeled as, hey, you've had some hamstring injuries. We need to be careful. Let's cut back your minutes. In his mind, I spent the whole entire summer and a lot of money and made an investment to my body. And if I'm not playing well, and you want to take me off the court, great. But don't put me in a box before I'm out there. And I would never want to do that to a veteran guy who's been a productive player. You'll be able to see if all of a sudden he's not playing well. But to go in and I think pass judgment on that and say the start of the season, hey, we're only going to play him 24 minutes, I don't think that would be good for our team. It wouldn't be good for him, and it wouldn't give him the opportunity to see what he can do from a production standpoint.
I want to follow up something related to that, and also was brought up there. Now, I was sort of hoping you'd call me this summer to work out strategy. You didn't, but so I'm going to go for it now. But you look at some of the other teams, and they have like these star players.
Mm-hmm.
And All-Star's been a question, been brought up to you many times. Who's the star? Well, you don't have a Giannis and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But what you do have, like what you pointed out, is you've got this depth. You've got second units who matches up the first unit, and maybe Giannis now with Jones back and Io back, maybe a dozen players who are NBA starter level players. Why don't you, since you're not going to put out this one-on-one guy who's going to take over a game, say, hey, we've got 3 units of players, and we'll keep running them out there, and not only run you like you did last year, but even more so, because this is our strength, the depth. We may not have all-stars, but we've got high-level NBA players down to 12 and 13. Could you see playing like that?
Playing 15 guys? You mean three sets of
12,
5?
13 guys?
On a given night?
Every
On a given
night.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that.
Well, wouldn't that be a strength of your team that you could,
I
throw these?
I think it definitely would, but at the same point too, I think you'd also have to take into consideration is how is that breaking guys' rhythm in terms of flow and play of how guys are coming in and out of games. I think that now I do think what's changing, Sam, is really I think there was, at least the way we're playing, and I don't want to speak for everybody else in the league, but there was a period of time where guys would play 9, 10, or a whole entire quarter. I think it's almost impossible doing that. So I do think we need to bring more guys in. Maybe it's 11. Yeah, maybe it's 11. Maybe it's 10. We're going to need everybody on our team. I do agree that that's got to be something for us to maintain. It was interesting today in practice, and I did this on purpose. I kept one group out there for a period of time, and they started to get tired. It was going up and down, and I kept subbing the other group. And they kept playing against fresh bodies, to your point. And it was just like, this is why we need everybody. But what I don't want to do is just sit there and go, okay, we're going to play 12 guys or 13 guys today, and guys don't know when they're going in or out of the game, when they're coming into the rotation. And part of their job professionally is to keep themselves ready. But am I opposed to it? No, I just don't want to do anything where guys felt like, man, I played 3 minutes, I'm off the floor, I couldn't do anything. And listen, everybody's got to sacrifice for the greater good of the team. But I don't think you want to get into a place where that's trickling through and impacting all the players. Whereas, you got to figure out how would that work, where it would impact the group in a positive way.
I'm done.
Perfect.
Thanks, Billy.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.